Welcome into the Trevor Staub Show, episode number 3. Today we have a special guest, Eric Oakley. We're going to talk to Eric about switching from dynamic disc over to infinite and what it's like throwing a mixed bag. And just a little disclaimer before we start, this interview was taken weeks ago. This is before, if you guys are following Eric Oakley, he posted on his Instagram account that he actually had an injury, which caused him to have to delay his start to the tour. I actually asked him about that in the interview before he told me, so that's kind of why he wasn't able to answer it. Just in case you're wondering during that section of the interview what he's referring to, he's talking about how he had to start his tour later, and we later found out it was because of his injury. But other than that, let's go ahead and jump right into it. All right, so today we've got a really special guest. We've got a beloved member of the Disc Golf Pro Tour, the man who brought us whale sacks and who also carried far too many felons in his bag, Eric Oakley. Eric, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Stoked to be here, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So, other than, we'll kind of get to the more current events. So other than kind of your, what everybody's been talking about with you, which is your big switch, talk about just, how's your off season been going on? What have you been working on? How's it been?
It's been solid. Just been kind of grinding on trying to get, improve in every aspect. I had issues with, just distance drivers in general last year. So I was throwing a lot of just fairway drivers just to kind of keep it a little more simple. So that's been a big main focus, is trying to get that distance driver comfort back and being able to kind of stretch, because I mean, you've seen it on the Pro Tour where the courses are just getting longer, and I can't get away with throwing a fairway driver on every single shot. I got to be throwing those distance drivers and stretching those out to get more birdies in play, or just to make birdies easier, because the less stress, the better. So adjusting to the new bag has just been an absolute blast. So I'm just enjoying every minute of it. So it's been really good.
Awesome. Yeah. And down in Florida now, is that correct?
Yeah. Pensacola.
Nice.
It's been nice to us. We've had a little bit of cold weather, but it's still cold in the grand scheme of weather.
Right.
But it's not cold to the rest of the world. So we feel good about it.
Yeah. I've been noticing all the disc golfers kind of migrating their way down to Florida, and I don't blame them, because it is a big advantage to be able to throw all year long. So we're gonna get into kind of more current stuff, but just for everybody who's listening who might not know you super well, talk a little bit. Just give us the brief summary of Eric Oakley's disc golf journey, because I feel like you have a pretty cool story, the way you kind of got onto the pro scene. So kind of just give everybody the brief overlook of what led you to where we are now.
Yeah, this is cool. So I moved out of the Dallas-Fort Worth area of Texas. I was coaching soccer and futsal while I was there, and then I was playing disc golf since high school. So I've been playing for quite some time at this point. On and off, and I was just getting really into it. I had a small stint in Phoenix, and before moving to Salt Lake City. And Salt Lake City is kind of where I really was able to just kind of dive headfirst. I had a kind of forgiving job that allowed me to play almost every single day, and the opportunity came to get to be sponsored by Discmania. I took it. The opportunity came to drive the RV. I took it. The opportunity came to work for Discmania at the shop. I took it. I kept taking these opportunities, and that first little stint on tour was just this exposure to that. This is exactly what I wanted to do. And toward the early part of the next season in the Discmania RV, before we separated ways, and shortly after that I joined Dynamic Discs and was with them for a handful of years. And I was able to meet Tina in my time on the road, and we were able to get married and travel in an RV. And then now we're in this weird, cooler new place where we have a house. I travel around in an SUV, and I've just been able to make disc golf my life because of the amazing opportunities that have kind of come my way. I took advantage of every opportunity that was like, hey, go for it. And I said, okay, let's go. So had I not had an amazing support system, along with just that gung-ho-ness, if you will, I wouldn't be here. So without Tina's support, my family's support, and friends' support, this would never have happened. So I'm very, very thankful for all of that coming my way.
Yeah, it is very evident, and we'll talk about this more later, but it's very evident that you are always been the type of player to take advantage of, getting the most out of your disc golf, player marketability, all of that stuff. You definitely get the most out of your whole experience, and that's how you've been able to move up the ladder. And so talking about the dynamic move, obviously that was a big splash this offseason. There is, few players who are synonymous with their brand as you are with dynamic. And a lot of that goes back to what I was just saying, where it's because, not only do I think dynamic is a company that does a really good job with marketing their players to begin with, and then kind of combine that with the fact that you are a player who's looking to take advantage of that. So you were very synonymous with dynamic. Everybody kind of knew you. Yeah, Eric Oakley, he throws the felons, you were kind of that guy. So talk about just a little bit, what kind of led to that decision to part ways and go a different direction. What kind of motivated you to move in that direction?
So we kind of had just different ideas for where we saw each other. What they saw for me and what I saw for myself were two very different things. And it started to weigh on both of us of like, why can't they, give me a little bit more? And they're like, why does he keep asking for more? And those kinds of things. And they did a lot of amazing things for me in my time with them. So I am thankful. But when it came down to it, I knew what I was worth, and they didn't value me at that same number and that same level. So, it became this thing of, all right, well, if that's not the case, then we need to go elsewhere to figure that out. And it was and I know there's been the constant comments that have said mutual decision, and it actually was. It actually was, because for me, I went into a meeting, kind of ready to say, no, I'm going to go look elsewhere. And they were kind of like, we don't think we can get to that, so you can go look elsewhere. So it was a really mutual decision that we were both kind of on that same page, and we left before any more love was lost.
Yeah.
So it sucks, because I was with that company and I saw myself being with that company for a very long time, but things change. And when you start going down two separate paths, you have to make the decision. And not only for myself, I couldn't just continue to not value myself at what I think I'm worth. So I did. And just to briefly touch on Infinite, I'm pretty sure you'll ask more questions about it, but it has been incredible. The amount that we've been able to do, the building the bag series, I have a new series coming out. They helped create all those opportunities, because I had this new outlook on disc golf, and I have this new advantage that I can seize, and I feel like I'm only scratching the surface of all the things I'm going to be able to do with my time, with Infinite. And I'm hopefully that's going to be we're going to create a dynasty of working together, if you will.
Yeah. I mean, and it's good to hear. Like, obviously, right now we're kind of in this new era of like not necessarily disc golf free agency, but players are starting to figure out, a little more accurately what kind of value they bring to companies, and it's very quickly changing the landscape of the players are gaining the power back. They're knowing what they're worth. They're making sure that they look around to find a company that is going to, work with them in the best way possible. So, it's definitely headed in that direction right now in disc golf. So that's kind of been the trend. But, talking about moving to Infinite, everybody, when people, especially back in the day when people first started to, go to Infinite, and they've kind of been the front runner as far as retailers, getting sponsoring players, and they're a retail giant, so they can obviously undertake that. But everybody just kind of assumes, oh, okay, they're going to a retailer, now they can throw a mixed bag. And obviously, like, that's a motive. There's a motivation there, but I don't think that can't be like the biggest motivation. So talk about, just besides, hey, I can throw whatever mold I want. What kind of things does, playing for a retailer versus a manufacturer, what does that free up for you, and what kind of opportunity has that created?
I mean, let's look at some of the deals I've been able to pick up through Upper Park and ThoughtSpace Athletics. ThoughtSpace is kind of a disc and clothing sponsor all in one, and I didn't have those opportunities when I was with Dynamic. we promoted the dynamic disc bag lineup, and when it came to clothing, it was in the works, but nothing ever came of it. So I get to uh, put my branding not only on discs on whale sacks, but now onto apparel and help promote a bag that I excited behind, and it kind of just keeps to kind of work in that way that my web and my reach grows, and the companies that I support, I get to help grow their reach as well by there are people who are fans of Eric Oakley who have never heard of Upper Park or vice versa, and now when we promote each other, now we are gaining fans on either side. So it becomes a really, really cool concept to just kind of continue to work and grow like that. So that was, I think, one of the biggest things that the opportunities for sponsorships, the opportunities for discs in general. Like I'll just show you right now. I got this cool opportunity that came up through Castaplast, and we did this EO Berg, and I'm loving the Berg, and it just was, that opportunity wouldn't have come if I was with another brand,
Yeah.
other than Infinite. So it's just like we're able to tap into these markets that get the fans excited about disc golf, and then in turn they're going to be excited about Infinite discs, and then they're going to see, oh, Infinite discs and Eric Oakley and then whale sacks, and then again it starts to snowball really, really fast. So it becomes a really positive environment to be behind because everybody starts to love disc golf and helps us love it more too.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And, obviously, yeah, the big difference, like you said, when you're working with the retailer, their goal, they're selling everybody's product essentially. So
Yeah.
the whole thing is like, they don't really care what you're pushing as long as it's something that they also can sell. So there's so many more paths you can take under retailer. And, since disc golf's kind of, headed in that direction slightly, it's certainly become more popular. And do you think that's something that's like a trend that is literally, future of the sport? Like this is going to be something that we see almost taking over manufacturer sponsored players? Or is it kind of just something that is getting a little bigger and will coexist, but they'll both kind of, be together, long term?
I genuinely think if you look at a sport like golf where they have putter sponsors and iron sponsors and driver sponsors and even ball sponsors, like they are more mixed bag at that level. I could see it working at the high end if there's enough money for it, but I think in the current state, the direction we'd be going, it'd be more of a coexistence where you'll see more, probably like looking at where we're at, 5% of players are mixed bag, of the top players on tour, maybe even less than that. I'm just spitballing here, but I could see it pushing to like 20-25% at some point here very soon, where you do see some more mixed bag players, not only through like it being just only Infinite, but going a gateway route, going a couple other brands opening that avenue. Castaplast being one that allows for that a little bit as well. Brodiscus comes to mind as well. I do see us getting more in that direction, but I don't ever see the major manufacturers losing their stronghold on player sponsorships. I do think that player sponsorships are going to have to move in a better direction, because if companies will not allow their players to have outside sponsors like clothing and bags, they have to pay so much more that they could pay less for the person. And in that regard, they could they end up saving money, allowing them to go receive extra benefits from a bag sponsor, from a clothing sponsor, from a whatever, like the knee pads are out there, whale sacks is out there, those kinds of sponsors allow for that. I think that'll help the major manufacturers in the long run of helping them survive, because they're just gonna bleed out too much money, and it's going to be hard to keep up with. But I could be wrong. We'll see with like kind of a Ricky Kona deal, because they're getting custom bags through DD, and that'll be something that if that takes off, it could be maybe they've struck gold. Who knows?
Right. Yeah. And from what I've seen in the disc golf contracts, they are always seeming to be very like, we need you to be very exclusive. We're going to sign you, but we need everything. We need our logo on all the clothes. So I wonder too if they'll start to get more flexible with that, because what happens is, even when you have like Ricky and Kona able to do bags through Dynamic and whatnot, a lot of times it all comes down to well, we're going to put your name on it, and that's what's got to sell at the end of the day. So I'm definitely curious to see. I think there's just so much change going on right now in the way disc golfers are being paid and everything. So I think it'll be interesting to see how it all works out. But so talking about mixed bags, obviously, because that's one of the big benefits is now you get to throw all these different molds. It's funny because I was checking out your YouTube series, your Building the Bag series, and I just found it so relatable because I have just recently started throwing a mixed bag. I was throwing dynamic for about a year, so you're not the only one that left. But
let's go, dude.
Yeah, but so like when I got back into it, I was like, man, this is just so overwhelming. And then I saw your video, and it's just like approach putters, and there's just a list of like 20 of them. I'm watching you throw them, and I'm like, oh, they're almost all the same. And I'm just thinking to myself, like, how have you found, the process of selecting your mixed bag? How have you tried to get around the overwhelming, fact of like, there is going to be 50 discs that all fly a certain way? How are you kind of been approaching it?
I think the biggest part for me has been feel. It needs to feel really good in my hand. And that is, it just trumps all. Like, I don't care if the disc flies amazing. If I don't feel like I'm going to be confident with it in my hand, I can't put myself in that situation to second guess myself while I'm on the road.
It's all feel, and I'm loving it, and it's really good.
That's honestly what I found too, is like, I feel like when you first start playing disc golf and you're kind of working through like selecting a bag, a lot of it is like, I need to find a disc that flies and does this, and I need to find a disc that fills this slot. And then it does become, eventually you have to like make this conscious decision in your mind, like, okay, I know I have all these putters or mids that fly exactly this way. I just need to go ahead and sit on the one that feels the best. Like, you almost have to just put your foot down and be like, all right, this is it. This is the one. So as far as like, obviously, getting into the mixed bag, it's very overwhelming. It takes a while to narrow that down. Do you feel that like now with the season starting in a few weeks, do you feel like the process was completely done, or was it like, there's a lot of possibilities, but I need to just freeze my bag where it is now so that I'm not dealing with the uncertainty going through the season?
I think there's probably just a few slots that could shift over the first few tournaments that I end up playing. It's just I feel good about, all right, cool, I have this slot, I have like the main key slots. The in-between stuff is where it's like, okay, this disc might work for it, it might not. I need to test it on the course. Like, I've been using the Mantra is one I've been using for rollers, and I've been loving it out down here, but I need to see it, on some other courses and seeing on different terrains and different things like that. So that's one where it's like, I might want something a little flippier or not, or just a different plastic. So I think that's also the coolest part, is that, I'm in trouble. I need this specific disc for this shot. Okay, cool. If I don't have it in my bins, I go to the local disc golf shop and I hopefully pick one up, and then I could just grab one off the shelf and not have to worry about, do they have this disc from this brand?
Right.
No, it's just like I can grab it and go and throw it. And it's that, again, feels like it leads me to this place where my bag can be ever flowing and constantly changing, just dependent on the course. And so there are definitely going to be some discs that cycle in and cycle out, just depending on what we're doing and what kind of courses we're playing. So I think that's a very big positive, that I don't feel so structured, but it also is overwhelming at times.
Yeah, it definitely opens up a world of possibilities. One other thing that I was wondering kind of about the mixed bag is another possibility, another door that it opens is, now that you have access to all these brands, you kind of feel that, you have the option of putting in maybe rarer discs, maybe like a disc that, is tougher to get your hands on, but at the same time, then if you like kind of lose that disc, then it might be tough to replace. Was that ever part of your thought process? Is like, well, maybe I should lean on some more stock molds that I know I can replace if I have to?
I've been staying with the stock stuff for the most part. I had Chris Dickerson give me his red Huck Lab MD3 that he was throwing not MD3, M3.
Yeah.
And it's one of the best mid ranges I've ever thrown. it's so unbelievably good. And I was like, but he said when he sent it to me, he's like, good luck replacing it.
Yeah.
So I was like,
Prodigy.
you dog.
Yeah.
So it's just like, so part of me like, maybe I'll throw it until it dies and that kind of thing, and or just hand it off to some other Prodigy member so it stays within the Prodigy family. But I feel like there are times where that one's always going to be in my backup bag. Like always, like I might, okay, cool. It's like this wooded shot where a Pathfinder might be a little too long, and like the M3 to me is just like a little bit shorter than my Pathfinders are flying right now, and it's just like, okay, cool. If it's like a more traditional mid-range shot, I can, instead of powering down, I can just rip the M3 and give myself an opportunity for good scoring. So it's funny. I don't know.
It's sometimes like
changing.
It's like there's sometimes that, like you said, there is always going to be that disc that you just can't ignore. Like I know I can't replace this, but like I'm doing a disservice to not throw this disc.
Exactly. Why would I handcuff myself whenever
Right.
I could just have this at the ready and just be good?
Right.
Like it's. I think that's been the best part. But like for me, like I stocked up. I was very fortunate to be able to go to Infinite, pick out, feel, and I grabbed a plethora of stuff to where I feel like this stuff I could get really comfortable with, and I can go and throw them with confidence, like over water, and not have to worry about losing them, and understanding how they wear in. And what I am noticing is, there's a pretty good durability change that I'm seeing from some of the Discraft and Innova molds that I haven't been throwing much obviously over the past 4 or 5 years, but I feel like, and I have ripped into some trees and smoked some different things, and just like the discs are holding up, so that gives me the confidence that I'm like, okay, cool, this disc isn't going to just randomly die on me. Which can happen at any moment to any plastic and any manufacturer. It's just, but I'm noticing just there's this slight difference where I feel like I'm getting a little bit longer life, or a slower wear,
right,
where they're staying in a sweeter spot for longer.
Right. Yeah, that's definitely key. All right, so moving back to kind of what you were saying earlier, you mentioned how you're kind of a player who took advantage of every opportunity you had, and I think one of the reasons that I was able to kind of pick up on your career as I was getting into disc golf is because you are one of the best, if not the best, at social media as far as disc golf is concerned. Absolutely. So, and it's the crazy thing is, I think we're in an age in disc golf where getting on social media, putting a little bit of work in it can change your career. I mean, you can get yourself into the spotlight very quick because the fans want to get behind the scenes. They want to get to know these players. Yeah. And you've always done a good job. I think it's one of the reasons that you're valuable to Infinite Disc, certainly, because you're going to promote really well. And I'm just wondering, why do you feel that other players aren't kind of taking advantage in the way you have? Has it just come down to they don't feel like it's worth it, or what do you kind of like? What's been your experience with that?
I could see it being a distraction for some, away from the play, and legitimately, disc golf is our job. Like, but to me, it's being an influencer and being a representative of these companies. I think that goes farther and has more weight. Where if it was all based on performances, I mean, I wouldn't have gained any followers last year. I did not have my best year. And I still gained followers on Instagram. I still found ways to stay relevant. And that, I think, is the more important thing, is that it starts to become less about your performance. Like, let's take Damian Lillard as an example of the Portland Trailblazers could, not play well and miss the playoffs, but he's still going to find ways to be relevant because he's going to have, he's going to be doing commercials, he's going to be doing things, he's going to be representing, he's taking care of his community, he's doing a lot of those things. That's the important factors that I think a lot of players might be missing out on. I genuinely think that most of it comes down to it's not knowing how, and it's not having the want to do so. Because me focusing on social media, like taking one of my practice rounds and saying, hey, I'm going to film this round with some of my buddies, that means that my practice is somewhat, it's a little bit diluted. It's not as good. So, but I know that the fans and people are going to love that practice round and be able to see that and engage with that, and they're going to be rooting for us at the end of the day. And I think that's it's really important. I do see a big increase, and I think what it's going to end up being is that we're going to need social media managers for a lot of players coming up soon, and I think that we're seeing that with a couple of players who've you've seen increases in their social media presence, and I don't think that's completely on them, but they're doing the right thing by saying, I know that this isn't my strong suit. I make X amount of dollars. I can allocate some of this money to increasing that social media, which will bring in probably more in income and easily pay for whatever they were paying this person to do social media. It's super smart, and it builds fans really, really fast.
Yeah.
So
well, I mean,
they got to do it.
And you said it when you mentioned relevancy is king in this sport, because not only is it just helping your value, but it means that you can go, you can be a guy like, let's say Simon Lizotte, for instance. Simon Lizotte, wildly popular on YouTube. If Simon Lizotte doesn't have, if he lost it all right now, disc golf contract wise, he can now make a living off of his YouTube channel. Like the social media gives you that cushion to where you can go into an event, know that, hey, if I don't have my best weekend, I'm not going to drop off the face of the earth, because I don't need to be on lead card to keep fresh in people's minds. And, your name staying relevant, there are some great examples. Ezra Aderhold is a guy that I use a lot of times as an example, because Ezra, phenomenal disc golfer, absolutely. One of the big ways that he got onto everybody's radar when everybody was like, why is this guy not sponsored? He needs to be the next guy to get sponsored, was because he was likable and he was on YouTube. Like that, it is such a powerful tool to get your name out there in an age where, being able to sell a product is going to speak to a company almost more than anything else. You can go out there and you can win the world titles, but at the end of the day, we want to be able to put your name on a disc and for it to move. So
totally.
That's definitely been huge for you. And the crazy thing is with you is not only do you do the social media, but then you also have, you and your wife run Whale Sacks, which is
mainly her.
Mainly her. Yes.
I help try and help with promotion, and I'll be a sounding board for her, but mainly her. She kills it. She's got a whole team of her working with it, but we sell them, we do all that stuff, so it's been huge. To say it hasn't helped me is I can't say that, because it absolutely has helped me and keep me on the road. So thank you, Tina.
Yeah. How did Whale Sacks come about? Like how did that all start?
Tina was living in Wisconsin, just starting getting into disc golf, and so super hot, super humid and muggy in the summers. She's like, I need something to dry my hands, and she, her grandmother taught her how to be a seamstress, and so she made the first kind of dry bag, and it was like a square with tail, because she wanted to tie it onto her bag, and they're like, oh, her friend said, why don't you make it shaped like a whale? Boom. And then she started shaping them like whales, and then kept making them by hand, had a whole bunch of different iterations of them, has now grown to where she's providing extra income for a handful of people. She's got people working for her. We have somebody doing her shipping. Like, it has become a real disc golf company and
Absolutely.
a real business, and and I think it's when it comes down to it, it's the best product out there, and you'll see that with how many pros do you see using them, and they aren't all sponsored pros, and they by Whale Sack, so it's really cool to see.
Yeah, I've used them. They're great, and I've always loved those like homegrown disc golf companies like that. It's awesome to see them thrive. I love that Whale Sacks works with other players too to make kind of signature bags and things like that. So that's been awesome. Yeah, so kind of moving into the tour this year, obviously things are getting started quickly. I believe I saw your first tour stop. You're starting in Belton, is that right?
I am not. I am dropping from Belton. I had some personal things that I'll be talking about here soon on my socials. That's I'm just going to take a slower start to the season. So.
Okay, so you'll be picking up a little bit later than that, but
yeah, I'll be ready to go before Champions Cup and everything. I'm not going to miss a major or anything like that. So.
Okay, awesome. Well, so I guess starting at Champions Cup, then what are you kind of looking forward to mostly for this year's tour?
I think the biggest thing that I need to do is kind of wash myself of last year. Mentally, I did not have the capacity for what was being asked of me, and that was it. So I mean, I've had conversations with Infinite, and they're like, hey, we're already happy with everything that you've been able to do, and you've been with us for a small amount of time. We want you to go out there. We want you to smile and enjoy yourself. So having that kind of support where there's no like, hey, go win, like, and that was never what it was before, but it was, kind of under the like in between the lines of like,
right.
Hey, but it'd be sick if you did. So
yeah.
And here's the thing, Infinite is just like, go play. If you play well, it's a bonus for us. If not, promote, and that's all we can ask for. So again, I feel so lucky. And so what that translates for me and what I'm expecting is I want to keep a good head. I want to go back to loving disc golf and get back to kind of the core values of why I ended up on tour, and just kind of playing each event and just living shot by shot, and just being able to kind of embrace again the opportunity that's ahead of me. And I felt like I was losing sight of that a lot. So that's the goal.
Yeah.
I don't have any aspirations to. I have aspirations to win plenty of events.
Sure.
And I would love to. And I think I have the skill set to do so at some point. It just kind of needs to all come together. So for me, I'm just gonna go out and enjoy it. When it comes, I just need to be ready to step up to the plate.
Definitely. And it's great to hear about companies like being in the hands of Infinite and them kind of, backing you fully. I love a company that'll sign a player and say, you know what, we know what we're getting, no matter what happens, like we put it, we've got our trust in you, and like we're going to support you no matter what. That is like the weight of the world off your shoulders, I'm sure,
100%.
To have that kind of support. And nobody can play under the pressure of just like it's win or nothing. That's not good for anybody, even if they are able to do it. But so one last question. So now you're in the mixed bag. I've seen some building the bags. I've seen you throw a lot of some of my favorite molds. So let's go putter, mid-range, driver. What are you most looking forward to throwing this year?
Putter, that'd be a toss-up between the Alpaca, and I'm really enjoying the Envy from Axiom.
Yep.
And I think what I've finally realized is that the Envy bridges the gap between mid-range and putter. It's like it goes farther than I expected to.
Yes, it does, yeah.
And so that's where I feel like, okay, it's a putter distance, it's an Alpaca. Okay, cool. I'd have to rip an Alpaca. It's like, ooh, or I could just kind of pop an Envy, and it'll just kind of get that extra 60, 70 feet that I would have to just murder an Alpaca for. So that would be where I'd say putter. And also I'm putting Alpacas, so if we're talking putters, like I gotta love the love your putting putter.
Yeah.
And we have Glow P-Blend to plug a little bit and hype it up.
All right.
P-Blend Alpacas are there. We just finalized the stamp. It's going to tie in with the fairway driver I'll talk about here in a sec. So it's going to be kind of a series that we're doing in with Infinite and with Thought Space Athletics helping with the designs. So it's super sick.
Sweet.
And those are going to be like if people loved the Imperial Eagles of old. It's pretty much an Imperial Eagle. If you wanted those, you can find some Glow P-Blend Alpacas, and they're going to be sick, and they're going to be exactly what you're looking for. So holler at Infinite. We're going to get those out very, very soon.
All right.
Mid-range, it's got to be the Pathfinder. That disc is so fun to throw. If you haven't tried one, it's like a Buzz SS.
Okay.
But feels like a Buzz. So it feels a little bit bigger in the hand, but has that Buzz SS true flight. So you get to dictate everything about that flight, or it's a seasoned Buzz is like probably another way to put it.
Yeah.
But and I love that. And the buzzes that I was throwing were a little bit on the stable side or more overstable.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, I just want it to fly straight, and then it would just kind of peel out. And I was just like, I don't want that fade yet. And so now I'm using a reactor to kind of do a little bit that's a little bit heavier than what a Buzz was, but then the Pathfinder is straight. I can make it stable. I can have it hold a turn. It's a mid-range that makes me a better player. So that's why I'm so hyped on that. And I get to do a special run with Thought Space. So it's like it's at that same time as it becomes easy for me to hype up a disc when I throw it well, and it's going to have my name on it. So
yeah.
it draws that line pretty seamlessly. Fairway driver is the Dynasty. It's the new one from Infinite that's coming out. We've taken basically everything that I loved about the CD2 mold.
Okay.
When I was with Discmania, I was a huge advocate for the CD2. I absolutely love that mold. Ryan Rentala, who used to work for Discmania, sent me one before I was sponsored, and I was like, I don't know, like I was hunting down second run FDs, doing all this stuff, and then he gave me a CD2, and I was like, holy cow, this thing's really good. And I was able to, it became a disc that I loved for forehand, I loved for backhand. It was another disc that kept it making me a better player. So we worked with Innova to try and figure out what we could do to kind of make something similar. The Dynasty is born, and we have an amazing mold in a 9-speed slot that I think is not only going to be good for pro players, but it's going to be really, really good for, amateur players as well, where it's a dreamy disc. It's just very straight. You can hyzer flip it. You can throw it on all angles. You can make it staple. You can make it understable. And, the goal is to hopefully get more of them in people's hands and just keep hyping it up. So that's where I'd go fairway driver. And then, distance is Emperor for sure. Yeah, it's just that disc absolutely bombs. Have you thrown the Emperor yet?
I have not. I've heard amazing things about it.
Get a GG Emperor, the swirly S blends with like a skull stamp on it.
Yeah,
if you can find any of that run. When I was choosing distance drivers, both Calvin Heimberg and Eagle McMahon, who used those at the USDGC distance comp, said that disc goes 50 feet farther than their destroyers and or cloud breakers.
Wow.
And that's coming from
high
two
praise.
big guys.
Yeah,
right?
High praise right there.
And I feel like I instantly added 40, 50 feet just because it was easy disc to control, forward push, like kind of like similar to like cloud breaker 1s or 2s and stuff like that. So it's just like one of those discs that you can kind of rip on. I think it's like I don't know, when I threw a Zeus, it also felt similar to that, but I felt like it just like for whatever reason just had this like extra gear. Like when you hit it clean and it was drifting over, when it came out and was starting to flex back, it just like kept its speed and momentum forward, where other discs kind of like slow down a lot and peel out.
Right.
So yeah.
All right. Well, you heard it. I like getting the opinion from the mixed bag guys on what they're throwing because they get to try it all. So
absolutely.
But you know what? We're all gonna be rooting for you this year, Eric. Wish you the best of luck on tour, and thank you so much for joining the show.
Dude, appreciate you. Keep killing it.
Yeah.
All right, and thanks again to Eric Oakley. That was a fantastic interview. Loved hearing from Eric about the process of switching to that mixed bag. I mean, it just seems so overwhelming to me, but it's also a pretty cool thing to be able to throw whatever you want. So thanks again to Eric for that. And make sure you tune in next Thursday. We have another great interview coming up next Thursday. You're not going to want to miss it.